Welcome to today's module on state and federal policy fellowships for policy and advocacy. This is our second career-focused module on science and technology policy fellowships. In our last class, we heard a lot about the AAAS fellowship specifically, definitely one of the more well-known fellowships, but there are many more out there. And tonight you're going to hear about a few more of these fellowships and where you can find out more about them.
We also have Daniel Pham, who is a former Research America Fellow, and he currently serves as the Associate Director at the Center for Strategic Philanthropy at the Milken Institute. So next we'll hear from Daniel about his experiences at Research America and much more.
Thank you for the introduction. I just want to say it's so great to work with everybody here and see everyone again. And like Nicole said, we've all kind of followed each other together on our journeys to science policy away from the bench. Chanel and Nicole and I all were, science policy friends all the way since grad school. And it's just so cool to see where everybody landed, and so glad we always can connect again. Again, my name is Daniel Pham. I am currently an associate director at the Milken Institute Center for Strategic Philanthropy. Not necessarily science policy, but still in the realm of science communication, where I work to advise philanthropists and other funders, what we call individuals of high net worth, and suggest how they can use their money and fund biomedical research. So I have a biomedical portfolio focused on bipolar and other rare diseases, and essentially build out funding mechanisms for them. So my journey started definitely when I was in, I would say in college. I went to UCLA as an undergrad, was very heavily politicized. I think we have a really strong California representation here on this board, which is cool. I came in and got really involved in the Vietnamese Student Union, eventually became their president, and really understood the value of community and communication. From there, I went to Hopkins for grad school, but when I was there, I always was trying to look for that community again that I had at VSU, just the shared experiences, building camaraderie, and it was kind of there, but not really. But I did have this one very, I would say, profound experience that really got me into science communication and therefore science advocacy. So it was like I was a second or third year grad student, and my partner at the time, now my husband, turned to me and he was like, "What do you do again? Like, what's your science project on?" I was like, "Oh my God, finally he's asking me." So I spent an hour or two or more trying to explain to him what a neuron was. Like, it's like a brain, it's like a road, it's like a leaf and then a bunch of trees. And at the end of the day, we were both really mad at each other, right? It's like, why don't you understand it? And he's like, why aren't you explaining it better? So at that point, I understood and realized that, we as scientists have really poor communication skills, especially to the public. And if we can't explain the work we do to our loved ones, why would people in power care about what we do? And who's gonna do it for us besides ourselves? We should be our best advocate. And from there, I linked up with several other friends in grad school, Nicole and Chanel being two of them, and started Project Bridge, which is a science outreach and communication student group where we focused on developing more partnership and links to the community and sharing resources, and also allowing scientists to practice speaking about their science to the public. And that really changed the reasoning of why I was in science, I think. Just, seeing that there was just such a lack of this connection with the outside world was really worrying. And at that point, there was also, anti-vaxxers were really up and coming, and just the anti-science movement was percolating. And so when I was trying to finish, I was looking for opportunities outside of the bench just to see, you know, if there was something I could do, because that to me was such a interesting niche, and something that was needed. I wasn't great at it, but you know, I'm practicing and still am. So you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you talk about your past and it's like what you say happened and what actually happened. What actually happened when I was trying to graduate was like a panic and a desperation of applying to dozens of jobs, right? Just like anything with the word communication, outreach, you know, something out there to get me out of here, essentially. And I applied to like 50 places. None of them really replied, because I applied to be like a director of science policy, you know, at like a science society, and nobody would take me. But we did have the opportunity at Hopkins when people from Research America came to give a presentation about what they did. And, you know, we sat through it. It was a really interesting experience. And I think you've all heard, like, you know, Research America, just to give you a quick intro, is a alliance of about 200-300 different organizations from bench to bedside, to advocate for science and research and health. So that was really cool. And that was the first time where I could see a career path in this field that was more than just what I had seen in academia, because that's all we learned, because that's what my bosses and people knew, which is fine. So when they finished the presentation, I went up to them and I asked, so maybe we could do like an event together. Like, would that be kind of interesting? And they said, sure. So we ended up partnering. So I had connections with like Project Bridge. We did an event called Eat and Advocate, where we ended up buying breakfast for people to have scientists come and call their congressional representatives to support the 21st Century Cures Act. And that really got me into the door of applying for the fellowship for Research America. It was definitely the #1 thing that got me the research fellowship. I mean, just thinking back of all the blind applications I sent in, right? Like, none of them, I maybe had like one interview out of pity, maybe. But that was really important, because they saw that I had that experience and had that personal connection. And I applied to the fellowship and I got it, and I was able to match it to start 2 weeks after my graduation date. And that's one of the good things about the fellowship. It's short and it's flexible. And, you know, one really good recommendation or mentorship advice I got was, it doesn't take a year for you to get the resources you need to apply for a job. 3 months is more than enough. So I was worried that I would need to do another fellowship after Research America. But it turns out that I didn't, because when I applied after my fellowship, I also applied during my fellowship. During all those 3 months, day 2 of my fellowship, I applied for a job. So that, you know, they understood too, because it was a short fellowship, that you kind of needed the next step. So at Research America was a really great learning curve, like a learning experience for me. Even though I was somewhat experienced, I had some, like, you know, grassroots experience in doing policy and advocacy, but it really paled in comparison to really learning what the field and the careers of what and who policy advocates do and what they look like. So learning about the different partners that are out there, all the different players in the field, you know, what it takes to get a bill across any of these committees that Chanel talked about, right? There's so many steps and so many relationships you have to build, and it's all about longevity and maintaining these relationships. So having those experiences were super informative and were key to getting my next job, because my boss directly knew the director at ASBMB, and send him a personal email recommending me for the job. So it's really important to have these personal connections, even if you don't have them. Seeking them out is really, really key. And now that you have people like us, like we're more than happy to, or I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I'm more than happy to be that sounding board for you. So, you know, that led me to my position at the American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology as a public affairs manager, where I continued my work doing advocacy on behalf of the members at ASBMB. You know, we were on several of these coalitions that advocated for certain groups, like for certain agencies like NIH, NSF. I was at DOE, the coalition for DOE, or it's called the Energy Sciences Coalition. And from there, you know, I learned about this other position where I'm currently at, and it was still interesting because essentially it's like you're still advocating for really good science, but to a different audience. Instead of politicians, you're talking to why should philanthropists create funds for early career scientists to support diversity in the science, to support basic science. You know, these are still the messages that these people need to hear too. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions after.
Thanks, Daniel. And, you know, thanks for stressing, you know, one, the network, and also I really love how you highlighted science communication in the beginning, because as we know, during this time with COVID-19, public trust is like #1 discussion everywhere. So, you know, I think it's really important to add that communication piece when we're talking about all of these policy opportunities, because communication is key. You're going to write in whatever job you have, you can't avoid it. So